to the Culinary Treasure Podcast. I'm Steven Shomler, your host, back here in Bozeman, Montana. Absolutely love Bozeman, Montana. This is my third year in a row out here. If you want to see all of my Bozeman content, you're welcome to go to adventuresinbozeman.com, see all of my travel articles, my food articles, my craft beer podcasts, and more importantly for this podcast, all of my culinary podcasts. Links to all of it are all there, adventuresinbozeman.com. But today, first time ever, all the times I've come to Bozeman, I'm actually on campus at MSU, the best college in Montana. No offense to my friends in Bozeman, in Missoula, who are at the second best college in Montana. No, I'm just teasing. I always say that. Don't be offended if you're in Missoula. But I'm with Jill Flores, the executive chef of MSU, Montana State University. And I came across you on Instagram, and it blew my mind. Wait a minute. Montana State has an executive chef, and then I look, and lots of colleges have executive chefs, and this is part of the culinary world I was ignorant of. My mind was blown. I'm so excited to tell your story and tell people what the heck you do, because people eat food on campuses across the globe. I'm dumb for not knowing this. But thank you so much for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so questions I ask everybody on all my podcasts. Where were you born?
I was born in Plains, Montana, which is in the western part of Montana.
And where'd you go to high school?
So I also went to high school at Plains High School in Plains, Montana.
And what's the mascot there?
It is the Horseman.
The Horseman, okay. And the first time, if I understand correctly, your story that you came to, when you came to Bozeman, moved to Bozeman, the first time I should say, didn't visit Bozeman. We'll get to that. You visited Bozeman before, but the first time you moved to Bozeman, 2002, you moved to school here, came here to go to school to MSU.
That's correct. I came for the civil engineering department.
And lots of people come here to be civil engineer. And why is that?
It's because MSU has such a spectacular engineering program to offer everybody.
I did a podcast with a gentleman that owns Crooked Yard Hops. He has a hop farm here in Bozeman, and he went to be a civil engineer here at MSU. Yeah, one of the best civil engineering programs in the United States, which is amazing. And of course, being an executive chef, the perfect way to graduate from at MSU is with a civil engineering degree, right?
That's right.
It's funny how people in the culinary world, whether they're brewers or distillers or chefs or winemakers, usually somewhere else, and then find the path that they're supposed to be on, which I think you did. So you, before we get to how you got to where you're at, where did your cooking journey begin?
So really, probably like other folks, it started growing up with my grandmother had grown up in the Depression, and my mom was heavily influenced by that. And so growing up, we did a lot of growing our own food and canning our own food. So we always worked with really simple, high quality ingredients to produce food that I love still to this day. So it really started there back home on the farm.
And you guys did you did a lot of canning. You did a lot of local stuff, right?
Right. So foraging, we did a lot of foraging for berries, growing our own gooseberries, growing our own cucumbers for pickling. We did lots and lots of cabbage for sauerkraut. Anything that you can easily grow in Montana, which is challenging sometimes, we would grow and we would harvest, eat, can, dry, and pickle.
I know as your story unfolds here, people listen to this podcast, I think they will see how that background, the local, the growing, the really influenced, what happens today at MSU coming out of your journey. But what were some of the fun things that your grandma made?
So my favorite thing that my grandma made that my mom also made that I still make is stuffed cabbage, which, some folks might think that's a little strange, but it's definitely a German heritage thing and is still delicious to this day.
And what did they stuff inside those poor little cabbages?
It was usually burger and rice.
All right, I've had those.
Yeah, and then usually had some sort of tomato sauce on the top of it.
Okay, so. I've had dishes like that at potlucks in Minnesota.
Absolutely.
And what some other things your grandma made?
So my grandma did a lot of candy making, and she would make homemade fudge and divinity.
Oh, my grandma absolutely. She didn't cook very well at all, bless her heart. But I had an aunt. She had a sister that made divinity, and my grandma hoarded that divinity. She loved it. Oh, my goodness. And some people have never even heard of divinity.
No, they should try it.
And then what were some of the fun dishes? Your mom made stuff, too, growing up that you like. What are some of the dishes she made that stuck with you?
So my mom also, she made the stuffed cabbage and did a lot of canning too. But she also she worked a lot of long hours, and so she really had the belief that the food should be simple. So she'd come home, we cook a roast, we get a squash out of the garden, vegetables from the garden, and then that was dinner, just simple and clean.
That sounds amazing. And she made her own homemade syrups, right?
Right. So one of the big things that I still love to this day is that in all that harvesting that we would do and foraging is she would make a lot of different kinds of syrups, elderberry syrup, crabapple syrup. She has a pear tree currently in the backyard that she would make pear syrup with. So definitely kind of that homemade touch.
And she's in, where does your mom live now?
She lives in Plains, Montana still.
Plains, Montana. And she has the pear tree. And then around Christmas time, there's a partridge that nests there, right?
Yes, absolutely.
I'm sorry. I'm a dad. I got bad dad jokes. Okay, so now your grandma lived in Bozeman.
My grandma, yes, lived in Bozeman. My mom grew up in Bozeman. My mom went to school here at Montana State University as well.
Wow.
I'm actually a fourth generation Bobcat, so that's kind of cool.
That is cool. And so you would come to Bozeman as a child to visit grandma, I assume.
Yes. Yep. She lived up past Kagi, which is really developed these days. But back then it was a dirt road. Kagi was a dirt road. There was no stoplight, no pavement. But yeah, we'd come to visit Bozeman, and it was some of the fondest memories that I have.
And you had no idea someday I'm going to be the executive chef of that university.
I had no idea.
That is really cool. Okay, so you civil engineering program, you graduate, but not in civil engineering.
No. So as I'm close to wrapping up the civil engineering degree, I take a couple of soil and water physics classes and decide that I want to be a soil scientist because it was so interesting.
Okay, and then you graduate, and you're here on grant studying dirt.
That's correct.
Okay, and then that program runs out.
Yep.
Your grant runs out, and now what are you going to do? I did a podcast this morning with someone who took chemical engineering here in Bozeman, and he and his wife, and she's actually now on staff here. He's the head brewer at Union Brewing, and his wife is now an instructor here in chemical engineering. But they, moved away from Bozeman and didn't know that, where do you find chemical engineering jobs? And then she ended up getting a chemical engineering job back in Bozeman teaching here, and he's happy as can be, and now he's the head brewer at Union. But same way, there's not a lot of chemical engineering jobs. There's not a lot of dirt scientist jobs here in Bozeman.
Not so much, no.
And you had family. Your husband's here. He's working in Bozeman. So you're not moving away to take a dirt scientist job. I hear there's a big call for that in North Dakota and North Carolina. No, I'm making that up. I'm sure somewhere they need dirt scientists. I'm sure somewhere it's a thing. But you're going to stay. So now you need to find a job. So what happens?
So I see that the one of the dining halls here on campus is hiring, and I go knock on the door of the manager there, and she asked me if I have any professional cooking experience. And I said no, but I had a big family that we cooked, a lot of food for them. And she said, well, that's okay because they were going to hire anybody right now.
And that was at the Miller Dining Hall?
That's correct.
And
yes.
Your first job is you were the soup lady.
That's right.
Okay, and so you immediately, I think this is the cantanker side of you that your husband probably only sees, but you immediately start tinkering with the recipes. Am I wrong?
That's correct. The recipes were not making soup. I don't know what they were making, but they were not making soup.
Well, I can tell you what they're making because a lot of people don't, I never thought about this till I had bad soup and it tasted like hot, poorly flavored water. And there's something magical happens when you actually can transform water and some heat and some ingredients into soup. And when you screw it up, you can tell the difference. And it's almost like a little bit of alchemy. So I've had that bad stuff that isn't soup that you're talking about. And some recipes, actually, that's the output. Is bad hot water, badly flavored hot water. And so you transmuted it.
Right. So I was given the opportunity to start tinkering with those recipes, improving them, bringing some local ingredients into those. And it was very fulfilling. And I loved being able to have that freedom and produce a really high quality product.
Okay, so what were some of the soups that you made back in the day, if you can remember that far back in your career?
Yeah, so definitely the minestrone soup, chicken noodle, which is still the most popular soup on campus. And also we used to do 4B's tomato soup, if anybody remembers the old 4B's chain.
So that's a chain. You didn't actually put insects in the soup.
That's right.
Okay, I'm teasing. Yeah, so those, remember the 4B's, it was modeled after their tomato soup.
That's correct.
So you said something right there. So you're a level 1 cook, right? Mm-hmm. Cook level 1. That's how you started out. And you're bringing in local ingredients? At that
asking
point,
to influence, being the influencer. So asking to bring those in.
Hey, can I get this? Can I get that? Because today, Montana State University brings in a tremendous amount of local food from all over the state, and we're going to talk about it. And I heard about it today on a podcast I did this morning. Oh, wait a minute. Montana State buys from you? Montana State buys from you? Oh, my goodness. So, I mean, you're probably the educational institution in Montana more than any other that buys more local, because I hear it all the time. But early on, when you're just the soup lady, you're bothering them to get in local stuff.
Yep.
Your poor bosses. Oh my gosh. You are shifting their paradigms, asking them to change. I bet some of them did not like you, but we won't talk about that. Okay, and then you went from a level 1 cook to what's called a floor supervisor. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah. And that's basically front of house.
Correct.
Not back in the room kitchen cooking, but front of house stuff. Yeah, I did a fun front of house podcast here while I was in Bozeman this week, because front of house is not something we talk about very much. But this amazing gal, Kate Burton, has spent most of her culinary career front of house. And as I thought about it, whenever I've had a dining failure, like I'm never going back there, how dare they? It wasn't as much because of the food, it was a front of house failure. So front of house is huge, but you not only did front of house, you also did cooking.
Correct. And I think that gave me a unique perspective early on, because I could see both sides, what was happening in the front, what was happening in the back, and how we interact together to make a great experience.
Because that's really what you want for your students today, is an amazing experience.
Absolutely.
And just so people, like, big picture, today as executive chef, tell me if I have this right. We'll get into what you really do later, but you kind of oversee the cooking for all the students here, and not everybody eats on campus, but a lot of people do, but 8,000 to 10,000 meals a day.
That's correct.
That's bigger than most restaurants. That is a big culinary operation to oversee. That's amazing. Okay, so you went from a floor supervisor and you became the late night dining hall manager. Am I right?
That's correct.
And so what the heck is that?
So at the time, we decided that we wanted to offer meal service longer into the evening, because more people are shying away from eating dinner, want to eat later. They want to be studying out with their friends at dinner time and then come in to eat. This was a great opportunity for me, because I was able to design the menu, design the recipes, pick ingredients, and that's where even more local ingredients came into the dining halls.
Okay, so I want to talk about this contraption. So in my first book, I have a chapter about Urban's Mac and Cheese. It's a food cart. It used to be a food cart in Portland. He since moved on to Seattle, but his food was amazing. He had this little box, this amazing little box, and it had a conveyor belt inside the box. And he would make mac and cheese, and then he would put like some chicken and some buffalo chicken with buffalo chicken sauce on it, and then some blue cheese on top of his little boat of mac and cheese. And then it would ride in this conveyor belt all the way through this little machine. Conveyor belt moved very slow. The machine wasn't very big. And by the time it came out the other end, it had all crisped on the top. And it was a little box, maybe, was, I don't know, 2 feet wide or so. 2 feet long was the ride that the machine took. But it's kind of like an impinger. An impinger is what you had. You had a big version of that, right?
Right. We had a giant impinger that we could send, 300 ramekins through. Just a continuous
and then
go.
It's an oven with a conveyor belt.
Correct.
Open on both ends. Mm-hmm. And they just get to go through this ride, kind of like It's a Small World, but instead of, the people getting a joy, the people get cooked.
That's right.
And so you got to have, that takes a lot of creativity to use that. Now that you used other things as well, but to use that, that must have been a lot of fun figuring out what can we do with this crazy thing.
Yeah, what can we put in there that that the students are going to appreciate and really love? And so some of the items that we put through there were chipotle bacon mac and cheese.
I want that. Bring back the impinger.
Yeah, and by the time it comes out, it's gooey, bubbly, crispy, super tasty.
That's amazing. And that's something that I don't think people think about. You have to cook stuff that the students actually, it's not like at home where sit down and eat your dinner. I'm your mother. Not that you would do that as a mother, but some mothers do. You have to actually keep aware of trends and what kids actually want to eat.
Correct. We really need to stay focused on what's interesting the kids, particularly because this is where they are eating for the semester. They don't get to go, it's not like a restaurant where they're going out and ordering what they want. This is where they eat lunch, dinner, breakfast, late night. So we really need to pay attention to their dietary needs and really try to focus on what they're wanting.
So then along the way, I may not quite have it correct, but we're close. You became a production manager. And today, your two roles, anyone's podcast, that's not how it works there. Well, I know, hang in there with me. So today you have I'll make up something that's close to correct. Tell me if I'm right. You've got the Rendezvous Dining Hall. And in the Rendezvous Dining Hall, you've got the chef de cuisine, which is a chef with a cool title. And he or she kind of oversees what's happening during that shift in the dining hall. And then you've got an executive sous chef who reports to the chef de cuisine, right?
Correct.
And then also in there, you've got a bunch of people cooking, a bunch of employees cooking food. And then you've got the front of the house people. And then you've got the dish crowd, right?
Correct.
And so back in the day when you got the production manager job, you had that one of those jobs, either the chef de cuisine or the executive sous chef job.
Something similar, yes.
Title changed, things changed, but that's back in the day, you were now in charge of a dining hall, making sure stuff happened in that dining hall, right?
Correct.
And then Martin Lewis enters the scene, and he becomes the executive chef at MSU.
Correct.
And he sends you off on a lot of training.
Yes. So I really view Martin as my mentor for sure. So he gets me a lot of training in the dining hall side by side with him. He also provides the opportunity to go do some culinary boot camps and other small trainings.
And he really mentored you on the culinary, really deepened your cooking well.
Absolutely.
And then he also, I think, ran a lot of interference because didn't you get in trouble a lot, sit in detention a lot, held after school, because you created a lot of trouble, right?
Sometimes changing some perceptions sometimes takes a little work, and Martin was very effective in helping me get the end results.
Because let me guess, one of the drums you were still banging is let's buy local, let's buy stuff grown and raised in Montana.
Absolutely.
And then there's those people, that say we've never done it that way before.
Correct.
Or that sounds kind of scary. Oh my gosh. This is a recent development, but you now have fresh hamburgers here.
Absolutely.
Fresh burgers. And how many burgers a day do you serve roughly?
So it's about 800 burgers a day.
So that's a lot of supply chain management to get the fresh burgers in and get them cooked before they go bad. And then you don't have unlimited storage space, and then get them out the door and then bring in more. And some people, it's easier. No, we're just going to buy frozen. We're going to buy them deep and stack them cheap, or buy them cheap and stack them deep. Who cares? But a fresh burger is that much more amazing. So it's worth it, and you buy local meat.
Absolutely. At first I was a little scared to make the jump because, like you said, storage space, delivery, a fresh product sitting on your shelf. So, but we went for it. Everybody worked really hard, and now it's just like butter.
They just accept, okay, this is how we do it. You change the paradigms here.
Yes.
Well, the only people that like change is a baby, and even they cry when you change their pants. And I know you, and we joke, you got in trouble a lot, but I suspect there was some heartache in there for you with some of the things, like you're trying to do right as you see it. You're not trying to upset anybody or bother anybody. So I bet some of those things we don't need to get into, but I bet there was some heartache in there for you.
I think there was some heartache in there, but there was also some, open-mindedness as we move through it, and very accepting and wanting to climb on board too. So a little bit of heartache, but mostly absolutely it's been great.
Well, and I admire your perseverance because, again, when we talk a little bit, I can't wait till we get to talk about all the cool local stuff that MSU buys and brings in here that people get to eat. But you had a really affirming thing happen that kind of validated. Two things happened that just like a stamp of validation. And, in those times in my journey, I remember I wanted to be an author. And when I bought my first book that I wrote at a bookstore, it was an incredible experience. Like, okay, it's validated. I can't write, but I'm an author now. Yay. And you were Employee of the Year.
Absolutely. That was spectacular.
For the whole, not just for the whole university.
Yes.
That is amazing. Okay. And then the next big shift that happens, you go from, where do you go from production manager? Interim, right?
So interim executive chef.
Okay, so you made the leap. You had a guy, Dwayne, came along, and Dwayne was the executive chef, and he got you some even more training.
Yep.
And then Dwayne ran off.
Yep.
And they needed to hire someone because at the time that Dwayne left, you guys were just building Rendezvous, right? And putting that together.
Correct.
It wasn't yet open. So there's 2 dining halls here at MSU. And a student can go currently to any dining hall they want, but they tend probably to go the one that's closer to their dorm, right?
Yes.
So there's Miller Dining Hall where you began your journey as the soup lady. And I think they have a small statue to you there in your soup lady outfit, holding a big kettle. No, I'm just kidding. And then the other one is Rendezvous. But when Dwayne left, then he was great, no problems with him leaving, but he left to next chapter in his journey. They were just getting ready to open that. So you had to oversee all of that.
Correct. So it was an inspiring challenge, though. I learned a lot from that. Everybody pulled together. We looked at menus, tried to see what we could actually execute, what the students would like. Always there's challenges, staffing challenges, supply challenges, but in the end, we had an absolutely fantastic grand opening.
And you were the interim executive chef. It took them a while to realize they needed to hire you.
Yes.
No, they're just in the. It's just. I'm not. If you're administration, I'm just teasing. I understand. No big deal. But after about 6 months, you got the job.
Yep.
And then. Well, here's what's happening as we unfold this. People are starting to, they don't realize what's happening, but I'm going to tell you listeners what's happening. You're starting to hear all the things that an executive chef at a major university does. So one of the things, right, when you became executive chef, you got promoted. Now you got 2 jobs because there was no chef to run Rendezvous Hall, the dining hall. So you get to go play chef de cuisine at the dining hall and make sure food's happening there, dinner service, etc., and to do the work of executive chef.
Yes.
Initially, until you got Rendezvous Hall staffed.
Yep.
Which takes a while to get, to find the right people. And we'll talk in a minute about the difference between working in a restaurant as a chef versus here. But because you don't have students cooking, you have actual employees, full-time employees. This is their job. It's not, you don't make the kids come in and work a shift, nothing like that.
So we do have student employees, but most of the cooking is done by the full-time
and the student employees
staff
tend to be front of house.
Correct.
Yep. Okay, and then just another cool thing. So you've got 2 dining halls. You've got 2 like retail where if I've got a kid here, I can go hang out and have a meal with them. You've got the Union Market.
Yes.
Union Market, and then you've got Bobcat Corner. So those are also retail spaces where people can come here and have stuff. And then you've got this other arm of whole culinary stuff. You do catering, which kind of blew my mind. So there's spaces that if I have a cool business and I want to rent a space here for an event on campus, I can rent a room or a building or whatever. And then if I want food, the catering department here at MSU will, as long as it's an event on campus, you'll bring food to my business event.
Yes, absolutely. And they do a fabulous job.
And then the other thing that happens is that the school has events on its own campus, and some of those require food. So then the catering department does that as well.
Absolutely.
So you're overseeing a big enterprise.
It's a big department, yes.
Catering, 2 retail spaces, 2 dining halls. Oh my goodness, that is just a lot.
And we have a food truck too.
What? Where does that thing live?
So in the summertime, it usually lives at the Museum of the Rockies.
Okay, and what food do you put in there?
So it's indigenous food.
Okay, so like what?
So we do, the menu usually changes on a regular basis, and it's based on what the chefs are wanting to feature or learn, but sometimes it'll be buffalo tacos or shawarma. It could be huckleberry ice cream, just any of those indigenous foods that we feel like people want to know about.
That is fun. That is awesome. Okay, so some of the stuff that you do day to day when you're not putting out fires and dealing with new construction, new spaces, you do a lot of training. You do a lot of education of your staff. You do a lot of recipe development.
Correct.
And kind of oversee all that. That's just a lot going on. My goodness, I'm glad it's you and not me. I'll put it that way. And here's the cool thing is you love your job.
I love my job. Yeah, I love the university. I love having the opportunities that I've been given here, and I love the food.
Okay, so let's get into how amazing MSU local Montana bounty. I'm doing a podcast this morning with Courtney Paris, Bozeman Distilling. She's an amazing distiller. She created the rum cream recipe that they have, and it is really, really good. Oh my gosh, I love it. I mean, she distills all the stuff there, but that's the recipe she created. And we're talking, and she says, "Oh yeah, MSU buys our whiskey," and I go, like for stress management for the students, or what is this? She goes, "No, they put it in their barbecue sauce." I go, "Are you kidding me?" And I had a hard time wrapping my mind around it. But you guys buy whiskey for barbecue sauces for the dining halls.
Yeah, we try to focus on as many local products as we can. So each dining hall has their own signature barbecue sauce. Miller has the Montana whiskey, which is made with the 1889, and then Rendezvous.
The 1889 comes from Bozeman Distilling, made by Courtney Paris.
Correct. And then Rendezvous has their barbecue sauce, which is called Booze Voos, and it is made with Willie's Distillery
Bighorn Bourbon. Yep, and that's in Ennis.
Correct.
Which is on the way to nowhere.
Beautiful, though.
I looked at the map trying where Ennis is not on the way. You just go to Ennis, but it's not on the way to anywhere. I got to get my way up there and get myself to Willie's. Okay, so that's really cool. That's amazing. What are the other local to Montana stuff that you buy that people eat here?
So one of the big companies that lets us do a lot of local foods is a company called Root Cellar out of Belgrade. And what they do is they bring produce from a lot of small farmers in, process it, and then distribute it to us. And without them collecting from a lot of different farmers and doing the processing, we wouldn't be able to have a lot of the Montana produce. So they're very helpful for us. We also do lamb here on campus, and a lot of that lamb comes from our ag department here. They grow the lamb for us. We buy it at market value, and then we slaughter and bring it back to the dining halls and serve it to the students. We also do a steer year program.
So lamb, how did you get what was the first way that you got kids to eat lamb? What was the first thing you made?
Yeah, so when I took over late night, there was no lamb being served in the dining halls at all. And being a Montana girl, I think we ought to be eating lamb. So we did lamb sliders because it was approachable, right? You know, how do you get kids to eat lamb? You put it on a burger, you know? and they were super popular. And now we do several lamb dishes several times a week.
What are they? I want to hear these lamb dishes.
So we do lamb curry with chickpeas, local raised chickpeas out of Marias Valley.
Yeah, and I'm glad you don't use garbanzo beans. I hate those things.
And then we also do kind of that old-fashioned lamb meatball with sweet and sour sauce on it with a local jam.
That sounds amazing.
It's pretty darn tasty. And then we also do dishes like lamb lollipop or roasted lamb. We try to incorporate several different dishes from many different cultures. So
to make that happen, you do local stuff here. You work with the university. The university raises, kids in school are helping raise lambs and learning all that, and then that's part of it. And you've also worked with the National Lamb Board.
Correct. Yes, the National Lamb Board asked us to go down to a conference in Colorado and talk about how we got lamb into the university, and also on how we're sourcing the lambs.
Yeah, and I think you're in the Lamb Board Hall of Fame. I think you go there, and they've got, again, another statue of you there, like she made it happen. What are some other things that you bring in locally?
So we also bring in a lot of local beef out of a company in Butte, Montana, Ranchland, and also out of Big Timber, Montana.
And Ranchland, that's Hutterite communities where they get a lot of their beef and their pork.
Their pork, yeah.
The pork is the Hutterite community. Yeah. That pork is amazing.
It's darn good, yeah.
I'm pretty certain that some of the pork that Blacksmith Italian restaurant, I love the restaurant, but really I love Steve and Chef Corey. I love the people, right? And then the food for me comes later. I think they get their pork from there too. So you get your beef and your pork from Ranchland.
Mm-hmm. And then we also have a program on campus called Steer a Year, where the students...
Steer a Year?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And the students, again, it's part of the ag department, and the students raise the steer, and then we buy them at market value and bring them into the dining halls and serve those as well. And then another really cool program that we started a few years back is that we've been going to the local 4-H livestock sales and buying pigs at the local livestock sales.
So tell me about the first time that you did that.
So the first time we did that, I asked permission, and we decided it would be a good idea. And so we went to just the one fair here in Bozeman. We got a few pigs.
And that just happens down the road here. And
Correct.
This is the county fair, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's the cool thing about, so the 4-H Club, if anyone doesn't know, it's amazing. It helps the young kids. They raise their stuff. They do it. And like what happens with the pigs, then after that they get awards, they get ribbons, and then they can sell the pigs. And the kids and the family, they can get money. But for me, part of the magic that happens is it happens at a fair. So while you're buying the pigs, I sure hope that you avail yourself of some food on a stick, because there are few things better than food on a stick. I tell you.
Absolutely.
So you go to the fair, you go to the 4-H Club, and you bought a couple pigs.
Yeah, we buy a couple pigs. We get them butchered. We bring them back, and the community loved it. The folks on campus loved it. It was such a great feeling, and it was incredible because MSU is the land grant college. So buying the 4-H pigs just kind of brought it all back into a circle.
That is amazing. And this year, you went to way more than 20 different fairs across the state. It started in Bozeman because it was your experiment, and it worked. And now you go all over the state to 4-H programs, going to fairs and buying pigs.
Absolutely.
Okay, so next summer, I think you need a documentarian to come along with you, and I will come take photos, and I will eat all the food on a stick while you buy the pigs, and I'll take pictures of all the pigs.
Are you driving?
Yeah, I will drive. Yes,
absolutely.
Oh, that sounds like what amazing fun, and what a great way to connect with the communities, the local communities here in Bozeman. Bozeman, and here in Montana, all across the state.
Absolutely. And I got to go back to my hometown last year and buy pigs. And so that was really cool, because I used to be that kid showing the pig at the fair, and then I got to be there buying the pig from my hometown.
In Plains, Montana.
In Plains, Montana.
I'm sorry, that chokes me up. I got a tender heart, but that just sounds so incredible.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And did you meet the young man or young woman that was the pig that you bought?
Yeah, absolutely. So
and you got to tell her, or him or her, I used to be you.
Yeah.
Wow. That must have been a really special moment.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the kids come up, they shake your hand. They're really appreciative of us buying their pigs. And sometimes they come to school here the next year.
That is amazing. I love that. Okay. What are some other things local that you buy, local in the state? Because the whole state's local. People, what did Courtney her home is Glendive, and it's like 4.5 hours from here, and she doesn't think anything about it. Oh, she's in the Helena Symphony. That's an hour and a half one way.
Yeah. Big land here. So all of our yogurt in the dining hall comes from a place called Kalispell Creamery in Kalispell, Montana, and that's about maybe 360 miles from here. So it's a little bit of a ways up there. We also get a lot of our flour from Wheat, Montana. We get a lot of our bread from Wheat, Montana. We get
Pasta.
Oh, our pasta comes from Pasta, Montana. And that's really important to us because we go through a lot of pasta here, and to be able to serve a lot of local pasta, it is kind of unique for Montana too.
And the other one I've heard that's local around here, and we'll close with this item, but I'm pretty sure it's local Montana. I want people to realize when I say local in Montana, I mean the whole state, not just Bozeman, because local Montana means a different thing than, local Portland. Local Portland is within the city limits, and don't bring a scrap from Vancouver. It's a different deal. But around here, it's the whole state. I hear tell maybe the ice cream might be local to Montana.
Absolutely. Will Coxon's. They are so tasty.
And I hear tell they once in a while make a huckleberry ice cream.
Yeah, it's called What the Huck.
Wilkerson makes some amazing ice cream. I do like that. So you've got probably more than 100, I don't care the exact number, but a lot, more than 100 chefs, cooks, I don't care what you call them. I mean, no disrespect to the people working here, cooking food full-time, that's their job. And I suspect there's a huge difference between cooking food on campus versus being a chef in a restaurant.
Absolutely. So here on campus, in each one of the dining halls is like 5 small restaurants inside those dining halls. And the types of culinary dishes that we're serving out of there vary a lot between each station. So you might be cooking those fresh local burgers on the grill one day, and then you might be tossing pieces the next day. So I think it's really exhilarating to be able to move through different types of culinary dishes instead of having to cook the same thing over and over again.
Okay, but however, so a friend of mine, Jerry Holt, he's a genius back in Minnesota, and he had this phrase that he had a couple weird phrases that I didn't understand until, later I figured them out. But he says it depends how your gyros are set. And a gyroscope kind of helps you know where you're at in an airplane, and he meant how you're wired. So if I've never cooked in my life, and I walk in here and we're going to cook 900 different things and the scope is huge, well, that's what I know. But if I've only been cooking at a steakhouse or only been cooking at a pasta house, that's it. It's just cooking pasta. And that's how my drivers, and then I come here and we're cooking everything A to Z. That can feel overwhelming to those cooks that transition over, right?
Absolutely. And we do try to do some really great training to make that transition a little easier.
And so it's just, there's still full-time cooks. Some people just love to do that. That's their calling. That's their job. But it's just different here or in any other university setting than versus in a restaurant setting.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I hadn't ever thought about that. I'm so fascinated by this whole podcast. It's like, okay, this happens all across the country. Students are fed, there are cooks cooking, there's people making it happen, and there's hopefully, really, you should do like some kind of training to make sure that other universities across the country are buying local instead of, buy it frozen, buy it cheap, stack it deep, buy it local, because every part of the country has amazing local stuff that the university could be buying from. So I nominate you to go bang the drum across the country. So I think that would be good.
I'm up for it. Are you driving?
I can drive. Yes. Oh, I love to drive. I drive out here every year to Bozeman. I'm an introvert, so I love the solitude. I get those 11 hours all by myself, but you could ride along. That's okay. We'll bring a whole crew. That would be a blast. So when you're at home, what are some of the things you love to cook at home? You love to cook dinner, right?
I do love to cook
particularly in the
dinner.
Summer. Tell me about your contraption you built in your backyard.
Yeah, so out of a few cinder blocks and maybe a side step from a semi truck, we built a wood-fired grill and a comal to cook tortillas on.
Ooh,
so
wow.
I really love to cook a lot of Mexican dishes out on the wood-fired grill.
Wow. Okay. There is few things better than a fresh tortilla. So it's a long story. Don't have time for today, but my brother is Marco Hernandez, and he may not be technically my brother, but he is on Facebook and he is on my heart. And I'm the family's token gringo. And I've been over many times. He and his wife Gudelia, they make the best tortillas. When you make tortillas from scratch and you have the little press and you do it, they're incredible. But I've never seen them made outside on a grill. Like that sounds incredible.
Oh, absolutely. It's a lot of fun. And the taste of it, I mean, the tortillas you get in the grocery store are nothing like a fresh ground homemade tortilla.
Yeah. And what's the word I always screw up?
Nixtamalization.
Nixtamalization. Yeah. That is also makes a big difference when you use nixtamalized corn.
Absolutely.
I know what I'm talking about. I just can't say it. I'm a professional eater. I'm not, I don't need to get the words exactly right. Okay. So someday I would love to come and have that meal. That sounds incredible. So what else do you do with the tortillas? You're cooking outside. What's something you would also cook outside to go with or in those tortillas?
So we like to fish a lot. So we eat a lot of fish tacos. So pike, bass. We'll grill up the fish on the grill. We'll
and then do you make a little saucer thing to put on them?
Definitely some homemade salsa with the tomatoes that we blistered on the wood fire grill and hand smush it, and lime and cilantro, and hopefully all either products that came from my mom's garden or locally.
That sounds amazing. Anyway, and then, next summer I'll come around, and I know a lot of the breweries here in Bozeman, so we have that and some good local beer. Oh my goodness, that's an incredible dish. But you also love to do some canning, right?
Yeah. I really enjoy, again, probably coming from my childhood of growing up in that environment. But yeah, I love to harvest what I can. So elderberries are my favorite thing to get. Make elderberry jelly, elderberry syrup. I like to make pickles. I like to make sauerkraut, pasta sauces, anything I can put in a jar.
I love pickles. There's 5 jars of pickles at any one, different kinds of pickles, and cucumber pickles. I don't even go to when you start pickling other things. And your grandma pickled, didn't she?
Yes. So my grandma did these pickles that took her 14 days to make. My mama does that too. And every day you treat the pickles in a different way, and that's, in the end, you get this spectacular thing that you've poured your love into, and just makes them so much tastier.
And then your grandma would pickle things like carrots, right?
And watermelon rind.
Wow. Okay. And how cool that you carry in that tradition of pickling things. Okay. I do want to talk just a little bit. I want to be careful, because you are incredibly prominent and you can't give love to one place and not another. So we'll be generic on purpose. But you came here in 2002. You graduated roughly 2006, roughly 4 years later, whatever, if my math is right. And somewhere after that point, you started going out to eat in Bozeman. Students generally don't, but at some point you have a job and you're going out to eat in Bozeman. And I bet from roughly 2006 till now, that's roughly 14 years, you've probably seen a lot of change happen in the local Bozeman culinary scene.
Absolutely. And I think it's kind of paralleled at the university too, is that people are moving, they're wanting more local food. They want to know where their food comes from. They want it to be better quality, better tasting. And
your kids are now kind of grown up and headed off on their own. And so I just have to, because I met them 2 years ago at Hofbrauhaus House and fell in love with them. Now you have some girlfriends you run out and cause trouble with. You go out on the town. I think you've only guys have been arrested twice, which is hard for the university. But Aaron, Jennifer, Becky, you guys go out to some amazing places. We won't say where, because I don't want to let anyone feel left out. But you go to some amazing places and have some great times right here in Bozeman. Am I right?
Yeah, we drink some good wine, have some good appetizers, and enjoy ourselves.
All right, so just a shout out to Aaron, Becky, and Jennifer. It was so funny to me, like, oh, I know them. Oh, they're your girlfriends. Oh, you got some good girlfriends. So you just seem so happy and fulfilled. Am I right? Are you happy and fulfilled?
Absolutely. This job, really, you have so many opportunities here, and you can be an influencer because, right, we have 8,000 to 10,000 meals going out a day at the dining hall. So we can introduce people to local foods, to indigenous foods, and in some culinary opportunities that they would never have in their hometowns.
It's amazing. And, you are just, it just makes me want to make all the kids come here to MSU. It's like, you're going to have some incredible food. And if you get to meet Chef Jill, that would be amazing. So Jill, thank you so much. I know you were hesitant and this crazy man reached out to you. Well, I don't have a story. I got nothing to say. You have an amazing story. You have a lot to say. And your passion for local is a very, very, very important message. And so it's been fantastic having you on the podcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It was really enjoyable meeting you.
All right. Cheers.